5 years ago, I watched a guy named Marcus make the dumbest financial decision of his life. Not once. Every single week. For 5 straight years. Marcus was 23. Assembly technician at a mid-size manufacturing plant. Base salary, $52,000 a year. And every week, without fail, Marcus was first in line when the supervisor asked who wanted overtime. 10 extra hours a week. Time and a half. Double on Sundays. Some months he cleared an extra $1,000 on top of his paycheck, sometimes $1,200. He kept a spreadsheet on his phone. He called it his building fund. He was proud of that spreadsheet. Showed it to me once at lunch, scrolling through months of entries like he was proving something. 5 years later, Marcus is 28. Still at the same plant, still working overtime. And his building fund has, let me check my notes real quick, $340 in it. $340. After 5 years of grinding extra shifts, after 60 months of skipped weekends, canceled birthday dinners, and falling asleep on the couch before 10 on Friday nights. After 60 months of telling himself he was building something. Meanwhile, I know someone who quit overtime at 23, made less money on paper for about 18 months, looked irresponsible from the outside. His coworkers thought he was slacking. His manager stopped inviting him to the Saturday rotation. And he is sitting on $46,000 in assets at 26 years old. Same starting salary as Marcus, same city. No inheritance, no tech windfall, no crypto lottery ticket. Different understanding of one number. And here's the thing. That number is on Marcus's paycheck every single week. It is not hidden. It is not encrypted. It is not buried in some quarterly report they hope you never read. They print it small and count on you being too tired after the shift to actually run the math. I am going to show you exactly what that number is. But first, you need to understand why overtime feels like the smart move. Because that is literally the point. That is how the trap works. It only works when it looks like the right answer. A bad deal that feels good is the most expensive kind of bad deal. It buys your compliance. You walk in grateful. Not financial advice, just 2 screens, a Red Bull, and a guy who actually read the fine print. Let's go. Here is what the system wants you to believe. Work more hours, earn more money, get ahead. Simple arithmetic, linear input, linear output. You put in the time, you get the reward. And look, on the surface, it adds up. You put in the extra hours, you see extra dollars deposited. The line goes up. The balance is bigger on payday. That part is completely real. I am not disputing the raw number, but there are 3 calculations they never run next to each other on the same page. And the gap between those 3 calculations is exactly where Marcus's building fund disappeared, dollar by dollar, shift by shift, for 60 consecutive months. Number 1. The tax bracket they never explain. Back to Marcus. $52,000 base salary puts him in the 22% federal income tax bracket. Standard. Normal. Fine. Most people at that income level understand this at least roughly. They have seen it on their W-2. They know roughly what gets taken out. But here is where it gets criminal. When Marcus earns overtime, those dollars do not get taxed at 22% flat. They get stacked on TOP of his existing income and taxed at the marginal rate, meaning the extra dollars sit at the highest point of the pile, where the rate is worst. The way progressive taxation works, each additional dollar you earn moves into a more expensive band. Your base pay fills up the cheaper bands. Your overtime dollars, they're always landing on top of the stack. Always taxed at your highest effective rate. Think of it like a stack of pancakes. The bottom pancakes are cheap. The restaurant charges you more as you stack higher. Your overtime dollars are always the top pancake, always the most expensive, and you are buying that pancake with your Saturday morning. Wall Street calls this progressive marginal taxation. On the street, the more overtime you work, the worse your actual deal gets per hour. The system is designed so the extra effort is the most penalized effort. Let me make this concrete because abstract explanations are how they keep you confused. Marcus's overtime rate is time and a half, roughly $37.50 an hour. That sounds like a real bump, right? Close to $40 an hour. Feels like real money for real effort. After federal income tax at the marginal rate, state income tax, Social Security at 6.2%, Medicare at 1.45%, Marcus might actually net somewhere around $22 to $24 an hour on those overtime hours. Depending on his state, his filing status, his deductions. He walks in thinking he is earning $37.50. He walks out with $22. That is a 40% haircut before he spends a single dollar of it. Now compare that to his base hourly rate. Same deductions apply, yes, but those dollars sit lower in the tax stack, in a cheaper band. The effective percentage disappearing from base pay is meaningfully smaller than the percentage disappearing from overtime. Base hours cost less. Overtime hours cost more. The most exhausted version of Marcus sells the cheapest hours at the most expensive tax rate. He is literally trading his most depleted hours for his worst effective pay. The hours when his reaction time is slower, his judgment is weaker, his attention is narrowest, those are the hours getting hit the hardest. Your number will be different. Your state, your filing status, your deductions make it personal. But the structure is universal. And the structure is not neutral. It favors the employer. That is not an accident. Here is your move. Takes about 4 minutes tonight. Pull up your last 3 pay stubs. Add up total gross overtime pay across those 3 months. Then, look at total net received from overtime. Calculate the real percentage that disappeared. Write that number down. Now calculate the same percentage for your base pay in the same period. Put those 2 numbers next to each other and look at them. Most people do this calculation for the first time and their jaw drops. Not because something illegal happened. Not because anyone stole anything. Every number is literally printed on the form, line by line. They just count on you being too exhausted after the shift to actually sit down and compare them. That is the first problem. And honestly, it is the smallest one. Problem 2 is where Marcus actually lost his building fund. This one they definitely do not teach in class, because class is for them, not you. Economists call it opportunity cost. On the street, every hour you spend doing one thing is an hour you can never spend doing something else. Hours do not roll over. There is no carryover balance. There is no savings account where unused time accumulates earning interest. You spend the hour, it is gone forever. What you built with it, or failed to build, that is your return. Marcus is working 10 extra hours a week, 40 hours a month, almost 1 full additional work week every single month handed to his employer in exchange for a taxed at the margin rate. Now think carefully about what 40 hours a month can actually build. 40 hours a month is enough time to get genuinely skilled at something. I do not mean hustle culture nonsense. I do not mean a motivational poster about grinding. I mean something specific. Something with a documented market price, a technical certification in your field, a skill adjacent to your current work that commands 15 to 20% more per hour, an additional capability that makes you expensive to lose instead of affordable to keep exactly where you are, something that creates options in your life instead of just more of the same transaction. Real labor economics research, not a newsletter with stock photos of private jets. Actual published research consistently shows that workers who invest time in targeted skill development see average compensation increases of 15 to 25% within 2 years. Not guaranteed. Your situation is yours. But the pattern is consistent enough to pay attention to. And here is where the math diverges completely. Overtime gives you a fixed, taxed, capped return. You trade the hour, you get the money, the transaction is closed. No compounding, no leverage, no accumulation of anything that survives the next payroll period. The return ends exactly where the check ends. A skill that raises your base hourly rate? That compounds forward. Every future hour, every future week, every future year earns at the higher level, before a single overtime minute kicks in. You are not just adding one transaction, you are repricing every transaction that comes after. Meet Deja, 25 years old, customer service rep at the same kind of company as Marcus. She was working overtime too, about 8 extra hours a week. Her supervisor loved her availability. Then she spent 4 months of those extra hours getting a project management certification. Not expensive, not dramatic, just focused. 6 months after finishing, she was promoted to a coordinating role. $11,000 salary increase. That increase repriced every single hour she works going forward. Every base hour, every future overtime hour. Every hour for the rest of her career at that company. She did not get that by working more Saturdays. She got it by making each hour worth more. That is a completely different machine operating on completely different math. And the machine Marcus is running has a ceiling. Deja's does not, at least not the same one. Here is the part that never makes it into the motivational content. If Marcus spends 40 hours a month raising his earning capacity, he might eventually stop being affordable for the plant to keep where he is. he might become expensive. And if Marcus becomes expensive, he has leverage. Real leverage, not please consider me for a raise leverage. Walk-away leverage. The system does not want Marcus to have walk-away leverage. The system wants Marcus available, reliable, and priced in. His willingness to say yes to overtime is what keeps the price affordable. Your actual move here. Do not do anything dramatic. Do not quit tomorrow. Do not blow up your situation on a thesis. Identify one specific skill that has a documented market price in your industry. Something that shows up in job postings as a requirement for a higher pay band. Give it 90 days of the hours you would otherwise spend on overtime. Run the experiment. The math at the end of 90 days will tell you more about your actual trajectory than 5 years of overtime checks. One note, I am not telling you what to learn or what to pursue. I am showing you the architecture of the choice. What you build inside it is entirely your call. Now take a breath, because I need you to actually look something up. Stanford University. Study published in 2014. Researchers tracked productivity versus hours worked across multiple industries and company sizes. Finding: productivity per hour drops sharply past 50 hours of work per week. Past 55 hours, the degradation is so severe that the extra hours produce almost zero measurable additional output. Zero extra output. You are clocking in. You are present. You are technically on the clock. But the measurable result of those extra hours, on average, rounds to nothing. Peer-reviewed, published, in academic literature, not on a productivity influencer's content feed. Your HR department has almost certainly never mentioned it, because it does not serve them to mention it. So Marcus is not just selling his most exhausted hours at the worst tax rate. He might not even be fully present for those hours. He is paying the full cost of being there. The output belongs to the employer. And the return is the marginal after-tax rate on a diminishing contribution. Problem 3 is the one that should actually make you angry. Your employer loves your overtime. Not because they care about you as a person, not because they are invested in your development, not because your dedication earns you loyalty in return. They love it because it is dramatically cheaper than solving the staffing problem the right way. Here is the math behind the math. A new employee is not just a salary line item. It is recruiting costs. Industry averages run between $3,000 and $7,000 depending on role and market. Time spent reviewing applications, running interviews, checking backgrounds. Onboarding infrastructure, benefits setup, and administration. The ramp-up period while someone new reaches functional productivity, which can take 3 to 6 months for even relatively straightforward positions. The risk that the person does not work out, and the whole process restarts. Total cost of bringing on a new hire in many industries, anywhere from 50 to over 100% of their first-year salary, just to reach baseline productivity, before they generate a single dollar of value above replacement. So when Marcus's floor manager comes over Saturday morning and says, "Hey, any chance you can come in?" The calculation happening in that manager's head is not, "Marcus deserves recognition for showing up." The calculation is paying Marcus time and a half for 8 hours cheaper than solving this staffing gap permanently? Almost always, yes, by a significant margin. Overtime costs a fraction of what proper headcount would require. And it keeps the workforce lean, which looks excellent on a quarterly efficiency report. Somewhere in the slides for the next management review, Marcus's Saturday morning is a line item that saved the department money. Wall Street calls this labor force efficiency optimization. Marcus calls it, "They need me." That gap in framing is the extraction point. "They need me" implies value and reciprocity. "This is the cheapest available solution" implies a transaction. Those are not the same situation, and how you understand which one you are in changes every decision you make next. But here is the part that burns the most. Marcus is producing real value in those hours. The plant runs better with him there. Output goes up. Margins improve. His reliability is genuinely useful. The company benefits from his presence in ways that show up in actual financial results. And every single one of those overtime hours builds Marcus zero stake in what he helped create. No ownership, no equity, no upside participation of any kind. He is a cost in the ledger, not a participant in the outcome. If the plant has a record quarter, partly because Marcus covered 19 Saturdays and 4 holiday shifts, Marcus receives exactly what was agreed, time and a half. That is it. Full stop. No share of the margin improvement his hours contributed to. No bonus tied to outcomes he influenced. The people who hold equity get the compounding. They get the asset appreciation. They get the benefit of the quarters Marcus helped build. Marcus gets a check with a marginal rate haircut and a handshake from the floor manager. Linear versus compounding. That is the entire game in one sentence. One side trades time for money in an endless, flat loop. The other side builds things that generate returns while they are not in the room. Your move. The next time someone asks you for overtime, run one calculation before you answer. What is your real after-tax effective hourly rate for those specific hours, in that specific month, given where your income already sits? Write the actual number on your phone. Look at it. Is that what your time is worth to you right now? Sometimes the answer is genuinely yes. Short-term cash need with a specific target. Emergency fund you are actively building. A defined timeline with a defined finish line. Overtime has real, legitimate uses. I am not saying never work extra hours. I am saying run the math consciously instead of defaulting to yes because yes feels like responsibility. Because responsibility is the story they wrote for you about making them money. Last piece. This one is fast and it matters. There is a cost to sustained overtime that never appears on any pay stub. No line item. Not deducted in any visible column. No one in HR brings it up at orientation. Researchers call it cognitive recovery debt. Extended overtime, not one rough week, but weeks and months of sustained overwork, produces measurable deterioration in decision quality. Impulse control weakens. Risk assessment becomes less accurate. Planning capacity decreases. The prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for evaluating consequences, catching when something does not add up, asking the question nobody else thought to ask. That system operates at reduced capacity when you are chronically underslept and overextended. And here is precisely why that is a money problem, not just a health problem. Decisions made tired are almost always expensive decisions. You spend more on impulse because the friction of stopping to think disappears. You plan less because planning requires mental resources you have already burned. You are slower to catch a clause in a contract that does not favor you. You miss it when a fee structure quietly shifted. The mental sharpness that protects you financially, the thing that reads the fine print, that spots the asymmetry, that asks the inconvenient question, that thing runs on rest. It degrades on exhaustion. The version of Marcus who is 5 hours into a Sunday double shift is not the same financial decision maker as rested Marcus. They are not even close. One version reads his bank statement carefully and notices the monthly service charge that started appearing 3 months ago. The other version buys stuff he does not need at 9 p.m. online because his impulse resistance is gone and it makes him feel better for 12 minutes. The company gets Marcus's sharpest hours, the standard shifts, and pays for them at the regular base rate. Marcus absorbs the full cost of every degraded decision made in the hours and days surrounding the overtime. The system is elegant, honestly. Deeply irritating, but elegant. Your diagnostic. Pull spending records for a month with heavy overtime versus a month with minimal overtime. Separate them. Look for the difference in discretionary purchases, in small financial decisions, in what got tracked versus what got ignored. Most people find a pattern inside 60 days. The overtime income offsets itself partially, sometimes significantly, through the cost of decisions made around it. Do not assume the overtime is ahead until you run the diagnostic. Okay, now I need to say something clearly. A meaningful portion of you watching right now. None of what I just walked through applies directly to your situation. Not because the math is wrong. The math does not change based on circumstances, but because this framework assumes you have options. It assumes some margin exists. It assumes your base income already covers rent, groceries, utilities, a basic emergency buffer, with something left over to actually maneuver with. If you are working overtime because your base does not cover those things, that is not a wealth trap. That is triage. You are not making a strategic error. You are surviving. And surviving is the correct priority when survival is genuinely the question. Surviving comes before optimizing. Always. Full stop. No exceptions. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. The framework I laid out is built for people who are past the survival threshold, or close enough to it that real choices exist, real hours are available, real room to maneuver. If that is not your situation yet, the overtime optimization conversation is not your conversation right now. Your conversation is a different one. How do I move my base income to a level where real choices open up? That might mean pursuing higher-paying roles in your current industry, a different company with a different pay structure, a different market or city. Or it might mean running overtime hard for a defined period, 6 months, 12 months, a specific number, with a specific savings target designed to create enough runway to actually change the underlying equation. Overtime as a deliberate, time-limited tool toward a specific goal is a completely different decision than overtime as a permanent, open-ended lifestyle. That distinction is what motivational finance content almost never addresses. They hand you the tactic without asking whether you have the conditions to actually execute it. They assume you are the person with runway already. A lot of people watching are not that person yet, and there is zero shame in that. But there is real cost in pretending otherwise and applying optimization phase strategies to a survival phase situation. You are not behind because you do not know the rules. You might be playing a different phase of the game right now. And step 1 is being honest with yourself about which phase that actually is. The right move in phase 1 is different from the right move in phase 3. Now I am closing the loop I opened at the beginning. That number I told you about, the one on your paycheck every week. Here is what it is. Take your total net income for the month, everything that actually landed in your account. Divide it by total hours worked, every base hour plus every overtime hour. That single figure is your effective net hourly rate, the actual price of your time after everything. Run it for a heavy overtime month. Run it for a light month. If your effective hourly rate goes down when overtime hours go up, the machine is winning. Your extra hours are diluting your real hourly return, not building it. You are working more and earning less per unit of your life traded in. If the number holds steady or genuinely improves, overtime is at least pulling its weight mathematically for now. That is useful information too. Not every overtime situation is a loss. The point is knowing clearly which one you are actually in instead of assuming. This is your diagnostic, not my opinion, not a strategy I am selling. Just the arithmetic of your actual situation, run on your actual numbers, telling you what is real. Marcus ran this calculation for the first time last year. 9 minutes on his phone. First time in 5 full years of volunteering for every shift offered. He has not taken a voluntary overtime shift in 4 months. What he is doing with those 40 hours a month instead? That is his situation and his decision. I am not going to sit here and tell you what the right specific move is for him, or for you. But he told me something that has stuck with me. I always thought I was getting paid for those hours. I didn't realize they were getting the better end of the deal. The system makes its money on the gap between what they tell you you're earning and what you're actually keeping. Between what the check says and what the math says. Between how it feels in the moment and what it actually is when you run the numbers slowly, without exhaustion. Run the number. See what it tells you. Don't let them play you. Listen to what they're actually saying. Drop in the comments. How many overtime hours did you log last month? And did you know your real effective take-home per hour before today? I actually read these, every batch. And if your situation is the one where overtime is not a choice right now, it is a necessity. Watch the next video. We are going directly into how to move the base number when that is the real constraint you are working against. Different problem, different framework, different set of moves. See you there.